Hello everybody, thank you very much for joining me for another Alfred Hitchcock Presents review. Today I will be talking about Season 3, Episode 4, Heart of Gold, starring Mildred Dunnock as Martha and Darryl Hickman as Jackie. And this is kind of an odd episode in some ways. It starts out conventional enough and goes to some pretty interesting places. Unfortunately for me, parts of the episode did feel a little forced and a little overdone. This episode is definitely a mixed bag in my opinion overall. So we start with our main character Jackie, and he goes to visit this lady Martha. She also has a son named Ralph who lives with her, and it turns out he's a friend of this lady's son. The son's name is Allie, I believe, and they were doing some time in prison together. So Jackie basically goes to tell Martha, how her son is doing because he was released first. So at this point, Jackie gets some food from Martha, and he tells more of the story of how he got into trouble, which was fine. And it turns out Jackie's always felt like he was alone as well. Apparently, he wasn't very close with his family. At least that's the impression that we get. And Martha talks about her son. And it seems like she sincerely cared about what happened to her. And there seems to be a little bit of a bond between Jackie and Martha at this point. So at this point, Martha basically invites Jackie to live there. And I thought this was all fine up to this point. An interesting story with some nice characterization. Could go to some interesting places. But as we know in Alfred Hitchcock Presents, there's usually a twist, as we'll find out. So the next day all seems to be well. Jackie seems to be fitting in. It turns out he's got this job from his parole officer. It's like fixing cars, some kind of mechanic. So he's at work and he gets a visit from this parole officer, Mr. Brown, and they chat. But what's really important about this is it turns out that supposedly he still knows where some kind of hidden money is, even though Jackie says he knows nothing about it, where this money is. So at this point, he's visited by some men about this missing money, and once again, he denies knowing anything, and they beat him up pretty bad. So he goes back to where he's staying with Martha, and she basically tends to his wounds. And he tells her a story about how he was beat up, but he doesn't tell her the whole story, that it was about this missing money, which is somewhat significant. So then Mr. Brown, the parole officer, goes to visit Martha. He basically tells her there's a conflict of interest with Jackie staying there, because, Jackie knows her son, Allie. But eventually he comes around and says Jackie can stay there. This scene felt a little padded. I guess it's to establish a supposed relationship between Jackie and Martha, but I didn't really think the scene was that necessary. It seemed like filler. And at this point, Jackie's also still frustrated that this money keeps coming up. But things only get worse from there, because Ralph appears again. He hasn't shown up in a while, and he's been drinking, and he's talking to Jackie, and this guy's acting really strange and way over the top, in my opinion. He's asking Ralph about this. Ralph is asking basically about this money, and he's like got Jackie, he's kind of like bullying him around, and he drops him into this chair, and then he's rocking him, and then he drops him on the ground, and he pours his drink on him. I thought this was really contrived, and that it tried way too hard to build up some kind of tension or suspense. But that's just me. Others may find it to their satisfaction. But it gets more crazy. Ralph just hits Jackie out of nowhere, and he says that he's the one that sent these guys after Jackie. Basically he's been in it for the money the whole time. So Jackie's upset now. He pulls a knife on Ralph to defend himself. He eventually stabs him. Of course, Martha comes home at just this minute, which felt very, very contrived to me. And she sees Ralph, and he's a goner. Of course, she blames Jackie, which, to be fair, he did stab Ralph, even though there were some other circumstances. So basically, at this point, Jackie tells her he'll replace her son, which I thought was really weird. I know he thinks he's close to her, but replace him, really? Again, seems overdramatic to me. And Martha basically tells Jackie that all they wanted was the money the whole time. So she was in on it as well. So this episode really doesn't probably end well for anybody involved. Jackie's probably in trouble again, and Martha doesn't get what she wants either. So kind of a dark, strange ending that just kind of comes out of nowhere. I thought this episode built up very well for the first half, but unfortunately the last 5 minutes or so of this episode didn't really work for me. Still, the episode goes to some interesting places for the time this was made, and Heart of Gold is a watchable episode, and I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5. I do think opinions will vary. If the ending of this episode works better for some of you than it does for me, you might like the episode more, but for me, this is just an average episode. So 2.5 out of 5 for Heart of Gold, and as always, thank you very much for watching.